who will share their expertise. Learn from real-life success stories and how to mitigate risks in your investments. Stay ahead of the curve with insights into current market trends and opportunities. The event will feature keynote speeches, panel discussions, and an in-depth analysis of popular investment options. And don't forget, attend the event for a chance to win $5,000 towards your real estate portfolio. Seats are limited. Secure yours today and take the first step towards financial freedom. We hope to see you there. It would be our honor to host you.
All right, so that event is tomorrow, and what I'm also going to do is just show you the site on Eventbrite, and that's being put on by Kemba and Andrea and Williams, and they are putting this event. Their company is called Keen on You, so the Kean, so that's Kemba, Ke, Andrea, An. So that is the site. Let me take off all this stuff that they're putting on here. Cookie settings, decline. All right, we're done with it now. There we go. So that's a full look of it. Also, to purchase tickets, that is the link. I'm also going to put the link in all platforms in the comments section. The event is tomorrow. So that's what you need to do. Earn while you sleep. So let's do that. Let's bring up Ryan Knight, who has done his morning child walk to the stage. Good morning, Ryan Knight. How are you?
Yes, I am very, very good. Such a pleasure to have you on, Aisha. Always good to see you.
Yes, and how was Calgary?
Calgary was nice. You know, it felt like Scarborough actually. And then
Is
we
that a
found
good
an
or a
area.
bad thing?
I mean, hey, that's up to others' perceptions. I felt it felt like I'd been there before, you know, like it felt yeah, because we were in kind of the suburby area. And it's actually there's an area called Marlborough. So I don't know. I put it on my Instagram, so then I definitely knew that it had that Scarborough feel. But yeah, man, it was good. And the conference was good too.
Well, good to have you this morning on the show. As you know of Aisha, because I know you've watched them a few times on
Yes.
Saturday nights. So Aisha, today you wanted to chat about a very significant event that happened almost 60 years ago, the March on Washington. Can you give a little background on that for us?
The reason why I wanted to chat about this?
Yes.
Well, because, you know, right before the March on Washington happened, Donald Trump was arrested in Fulton County. And his mugshot had been plastered all over the place. And, you know, his people, began comparing him to Martin Luther King, who also had a mugshot in Fulton County when he was arrested for March. And it, to me, was probably the most disgusting thing that on the eve of this event, this 60th anniversary, and a new march in DC, that they would compare Trump to Martin Luther King, whom many of them, if you go back to their fathers, mothers, grandfathers, probably hated him at the time and thought he was a radical. But then the violence that followed the march in 63, the bombing of the church, the killing of Virgil Ware, Johnny Robinson, September 15th, here we have just the day after the march here, the racial shootings at the Dollar General in Jacksonville. So on one hand, you can't sit here and liken yourself to Martin Luther King when you then tell your people to go out and they commit violence.
So during that time, can you give us a backdrop on what was the environment at that time when that protest was being organized, and who were some of the key players?
Bayard Rustin was a gay Black man, and this is the history that you don't really get taught in schools, but he was really one of the architects. A. Philip Randolph was part of that planning with the Porters. And really this was a march it was an economic based march, because you can't really have political power unless you have economic power. in this country,
Absolutely.
because
It's
money buys politics here. That's evident, right? And we're seeing that now with Menendez. Okay, so money buys power and it buys politics in the United States. And so that was the purpose of this march. And they were really concerned initially that they weren't going to get the turnout that they did. The turnout actually exceeded their expectations. And of course, Martin Luther King gave the speech that everybody quotes, and everybody only knows one line from that speech. And that to me is the most disturbing thing. Martin Luther King has given tons of speeches, he's written books. His writing for the 60s was very radical, but you have to go beyond just the I have a dream that my kids will be judged by the content of their, not by the color of their skin, content of their character. But if you go to Martin Luther King, my favorite speech of his is the one that he did after the Selma to Montgomery March, where he talks about, um, a poor white man who can't feed his kids. What do the wealthy white people give him? They give him Jim Crow. So he feasts on this diet of Jim Crow, and it festers. And also to his letter from the Birmingham jail, where he calls out specifically white moderates who, in this probably day and age, would probably be some of the liberals in our country. But he calls them out, and he calls out the clergy and saying, how can you preach the word of God but not respect your fellow man who is made by God? And so the fundamental nature of what King is about, they misunderstand. They try to shift the meaning. But if you really want to know what they think about Martin Luther King, think about the holiday. It was almost 40 years ago that they protested giving King a holiday. Even the Ronald Reagan Republicans, Ronald Reagan did not want to sign it. It was pressure. It was pressure put on him by several people. And one of those people that, a lot of people here probably don't know in Canada, Stevie Wonder was instrumental in helping to get that holiday
I
passed.
remember that because one of the states that was pushing back was Arizona.
Right. And a congressman, I believe it was Al Green, I want to say, he was the first to propose the holiday and to bring a bill for it to be voted on, and they could not get the votes. It took 15 years from when the bill was first introduced till it was signed. And one of those holdouts in the Senate was John McCain.
Yes.
And initially, when they passed the federal holiday, we had two states. I can't remember the other one, but Arizona was one that opted not to celebrate the federal holiday in Martin Luther King's name. So don't quote King, and don't liken your fearful leader to Martin Luther King when you couldn't even stand up for a holiday in his name.
All right. Before you go any further, I know Ryan may have one or things he wants to chat about. We have some other friends here. A lady we know on Saturdays, especially Lala Key. Hello, my loves. Fitness IQ Cam saying to Ryan, truly a traveler. He says, still a celebrity and back home already. Nams. And Lala says they love to try and make it look like they love us. 45. I don't like to say that. 45 will never be in the league of our beautiful king ever. Also, let's see. We got some other people. Good morning, Ched C. Good morning, and thanks for stopping my conversation the other night with Paul Osborne and brother Kofi. He says, I'm great, Dr. Vibe, loving the show. Fantastic. And Lala says, I don't think they misunderstand. They know exactly what they are doing. Gaslighting, picking and choosing, and talking what they feel will lift them up.
And on that note, Lala is right. The people in power, they know exactly what they're doing. It's those people on the ground level, those everyday people who you don't see, who have no idea, because all they know is what the people that Lala's talking about who do know, what they tell them.
Well,
Ryan, go ahead, Ryan.
You touched on the narrative of Dr. King now being co-opted, and it seems like they get comfortable with our leaders when they're able to put them in a box and say like, oh, but only talk about this specific thing. So now what's your perspective on what we can do to now take over that narrative or push back against the narrative? Because they're doing the same thing with Trump, where now they're creating this narrative that they want to link to Dr. King. And if we don't push back on that narrative, then that will become the mantra that they'll use. So what could we do to really push back on that?
I'm not even sure there's a solution at this point, because I don't even think that we can fix the Republican Party. I don't think any of this can. It's like toothpaste out the tube. It can't go back in. And, I think of two other people groups specifically that they never co-opted: Black Panthers and Malcolm X. And the reasons why are because they were Black centered. People, they had figured out a way to center themselves in the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King's goals. When at the time, there's a reason why Martin Luther King was assassinated. He wasn't assassinated by benevolent Black people, okay? At the time, he was one of the most hated men. Hated. J. Edgar Hoover, there are stories. J. Edgar Hoover was head of the FBI for way too long. He hated Martin Luther King with a passion. People have left narratives saying that he would just seethe and like almost foam at the mouth at the mention. He was tapping the man's phones. He sent pictures of Martin Luther King having affairs with women to his wife to cause that internal disruption. He sent a letter to Martin Luther King and told him, well, through other channels, obviously, but suggested that he commit suicide. So to say that, everybody always loved King, no, let's be very clear. All you have to do is go on YouTube and watch any news program from the 1960s, any news clip, and see how people talked about him. And then tell me that, oh yeah, there was this and everybody felt the love. No, everybody did not feel the love. And if you ask anyone who was alive at that time, parents, grandparents, I have them, what we're seeing then, what they were seeing then, we're seeing now to a different degree, because now it's not just people on, regular everyday American people. They are trying to go back and put these things back into our laws that had already existed. Fundamentally, I mean, we're about to go on a government shutdown over nonsense, right? But it's because there are 5 people mainly pulling the strings. And so when you go back to that time in the 60s, same 5 kind of people pulling the strings.
Right. For those who are watching live on the replay, I'm just showing a picture. That was a picture of the attendance. It was like, wasn't it? They estimated over 250,000 people were at this march.
Yeah. More people attended that march than attended Trump's inauguration.
So let me ask Aisha, what was the impact of this march at this time? Because this is something that America at that time had probably never seen before.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not so sure. I think looking back at it now, we can say there was an impact. But I'm not so sure at the time what the impact was when on September 15th, someone bombed a church and killed 4 girls and injured a 5th, who is still alive, by the way, and living with her injuries. Okay. And then they don't get prosecuted. One got prosecuted in the 70s. Many more did not get prosecuted. And then the last 2 prosecuted in 2002. So I'm not exactly sure what the lasting impact was, and not having been there or born at that time also doesn't help. But the fever pitch at which violence occurred at the time makes me think that the impact probably was people saying we got to get rid of King, because the truth is that the impact was what it should have been. He would never have been assassinated.
Mm.
And the fact that this man could bring that many people together around one cause made him dangerous.
And the cause of the time was basically, if I understand correctly, poverty.
Yeah. And it shouldn't be lost on anyone that when Martin Luther King was killed, when he was assassinated, he was doing his poor people's campaign. So when he goes to Memphis to speak, it's when the garbage workers are striking. 2 garbage workers were killed because they were not allowed to, black garbage workers were killed because they were not allowed to come out the rain into a facility with their white coworkers. So to shelter from it, they took shelter in one of the trucks. And then, the garbage trucks crushed down and they were crushed. And that is what got Martin Luther King down there, that strike. And that was he gave his final mountaintop speech, and then he was assassinated there. But this was about the intersection of racial justice and economic justice. And when those are the 2 biggest things in America that the 1% struggles with. And if they can keep those things apart, they continue to rule.
Ryan, I've got lots of things I want to chat about. Anything you're wanting to add at this moment?
Well, that's where my mind always goes back to. Before, it was difficult to get the proper information. Like you said, they kind of put him in a box, but now we can get access to those speeches, or maybe we can't, and we have to really dig it up and say, these are the actual narratives of Dr. King. So to really put it back on us, where could we find more better information so that we can educate ourselves and then start to share that and get it out properly?
Yeah, the Library of Congress, you can get that through. The King Center, that his daughter Bernice King runs, and also too, the FBI papers are open. Many are redacted. Many other things are largely redacted, but you can get the gist of things. Go and look at the COINTELPRO, COINTELPRO documents at the FBI. That talks about how they were infiltrating the Black Panthers and the Civil Rights Movement and all kinds of organizations, the American Indian Movement, and trying to dismantle all of those progressive actions. And one thing we can't overlook is, Dr. Vibe, you post a lot on our Discord channel about what the impact of AI will be. Well, I can tell you what the impact of AI will be. 10 years ago, I could go online and look at old photos of white citizens councils and racists with their signs holding N-word, go home. I swear to you, you cannot find the originals anymore. You go, they've all been scrubbed, photoshopped. So instead of N-word, it says Negro. I swear to you. And they are changing these things. I'm like, wait a second, I know that original photo. It's in this book that I have here. And it clearly says this, but their AI can be dangerous. So it's burying, and people have a vested interest in that right now, burying their history. It's the reason why they want to take Black history out of our schools. What's happening is that these kids are seeing their grandparents, these young kids are seeing their grandparents in these photos screaming and yelling and spitting at Black people and going and saying, hey, grandma, what's up with this? And then they don't have the answer. So I'm not even sure how we begin to dismantle that without even regulations over AI. Because even if we tell people, go look at these sources, go look at these sources, go look at these sources, while we're directing them to the sources, there's a machine back there steadily pumping out bad information and misinformation and revamping things using AI technology, creating false. People don't even know what's a real media a real media journalist perspective, a real publication versus something that is paid and bought for by special interests or someone. I mean, the designs you can get on WordPress. You can make anything look professional and like it's credible, and just slap a name and call it like, the DC Journal. And it sounds like it's authoritative. It sounds like it should be authentic, and just put a whole bunch of lies on there, and people read and say, well, hey, this article said this and this and this, not knowing that it could be just any Joe Schmo racist in his mother's basement with Cheeto dust on his fingers, typing on the keyboard. I mean,
absolutely. Yes, yes.
I mean, we don't know that, and so we have some serious problems, particularly in this country, in the world. This is a worldwide thing, but you have other countries that regulate their internet use.
Yes, yes,
and that regulate their social media, and that's not always a good thing. Obviously, you don't want to keep people away from information. But in the case of the United States, we are overrun by misinformation and disinformation. Those things are becoming the norm as opposed to facts. If you put out facts and you tell people factual information, they're apt to tell you it's a lie. I have never seen more people say, oh, January 6th, we're just tourists taking pictures, a walk in the park, as I'm watching video of people scaling the Capitol building and spraying bear spray at cops. You're telling me that's peaceful? And then you want to compare that to the quote unquote riots at the BLM marches. Let's be very clear. The BLM marches were peaceful. The violence came when those people would come and start causing trouble. And so, I mean, they uncovered that there were people who were claiming they were there and they're spraying BLM, and they find out that they're MAGA folks. So let's be very clear. Let's be very clear. This false equivalency, this misinformation, this disinformation in this country, the genie's out the bottle, and we've lost control. And we can't, I don't even know, as a person who works in media, how to get this back. I'm to the point where I'm so frustrated with having to constantly correct the record that I'm kind of taking a break from writing about these things. I'd rather write fiction, because it is just like beating your head against a brick wall.
All right. Want to catch up with a few comments here. Opal Inspire says, yes, Aisha, this is so true. Images are very limited on all fronts. Lala says, and the fact that Musk is going and talking to Washington on AI is a perfect example why this is not okay. Ched C says, excuse me, isn't it amazing how the 1% feared and oppressed other races, and now when they call out, they gaslight you, and say not everything is about race. Also, Divine Right says, we were on curfew on January 6th. And good morning, Mr. Hayden Morrison. How is the nutritional journey? I have a conversation piece I want to bring up here, Aisha. Well, I'm going to bring up the picture of Dr. King here, because one of the things I notice about this picture, and probably I don't know how much exists in America today, but if you look at this picture with Dr. King sharing on the March on Washington, there are as many black faces as non-black faces in the crowd.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where has that gone in America?
But I bet you at that time that most of those people were not from the South.
Okay.
Most of the white people there were not from the South. Where has that gone? The last time we saw, I think, a really big crowd like that on the Washington Monument was when Barack Obama was first inaugurated. About that many people there. I don't think that there is disunity, but I think people are hurting on all fronts in this country, and they need somebody to blame.
But they were hurting back then. Was the hurting on all fronts as widespread during the March on Washington time as it is today, in your opinion?
Yeah, but see, the thing is that the people at the top are telling them, well, you know who to blame for why you're hurting? Blame Black people. They're taking all your stuff, all the things that you're entitled to. They still do that now. But what they're saying is now, blame all Democrats. Blame the LGBTQ people. Blame disabled people. Blame old people for being old and needing insulin. Blame children. Blame women for wanting reproductive rights. Blame this person. Blame this population. So the blame is spread so big. It's spread about as big as the umbrella of the Democratic Party. And then in the 60s, the blame was more narrowly focused.
Okay. Ryan?
And that's why I think it's getting more impossible, to put the genie back in the bottle.
Oh man. But that's where the AI piece, I wonder, is there time for us to get ahead of it enough and understand how it's used to now at least fight back? Because if we just let it get out of control and exponentially run away from us, there's no catching up.
We're too
But do you
late.
feel like we should? You
We're
feel
too
that?
late.
Oh man.
We are too late, because the time to get ahead of it was when we started realizing there were issues with social media. To know that if we could get to this point, there is a point further beyond this. But the problem with the United States is that it takes so damn long to pass a law, because it has to be introduced, it has to be read, it has to be debated, it has to go to committee, it then has to be read, it has to be voted on, and it has to be discussed and debated and then brought back to the full house for a vote. There have to be amendments, there have to be votes on these amendments, and so then they need to send it off and vote and back to the committee. The committee sends back recommendations, then they vote on it. After they vote on it, and if they can pass it, then they send it to the Senate, and the Senate does the same process: in committee, out of committee, put it to a vote, don't put it to a vote, let it be held and get held up in committee, and then come back, and then they send it back to the House, and the House has to approve what the Senate did, and then they send it back to the Senate, and the Senate has to say, okay, we're good, goes back to the House, and then the House sends it to the president. And the fact, this can take years. This can take years. This is ridiculous. We have to, at this point, we really need to streamline our government. This is why we needed to start in 2012 after Newtown, getting this gun legislation stuff done, because here we are 11 years later, we haven't done anything on it. But even if we start now, do you know how many steps we will have to go through? It's just, a lot of people don't understand why can't we just do this and this law be put in place? The process that I just explained is why. And then the thing that most people don't know is that buried in that big 1,000-page bill, because our bills are then like thousands of pages, because they have to be written in certain language, buried in there is a date that it takes effect. Most people think that, when the president signs it, it's law automatically. Trump coasted on all of the things that Barack Obama did. Why? Because those things that he passed in 2015, 2014, and 2016 had start dates after he left office. And so the person that reaps the benefits and gets credit for it is the president at the time. In 2001, Joe Biden was getting blamed for a lot of things. Why? Because those Trump things were coming. Their start dates were happening. And so, they're talking, for example, you take the Afghanistan issue and how Joe Biden had to pull out of Afghanistan very quick. Many people don't know it's because of a bad deal that Donald Trump made. So the fact that we have such a process that can be slow walked, that has there's so much red tape in the process, we're way behind on the AI thing. We'll never catch up, because by the time they're just now trying to schedule hearings about AI, and we're not even sure what's going to come out of the hearings. They make recommendations, then they'll have to do a report about the hearings, and guess how long that report can take them to do? It can take them probably a year to do the report. Think about this. We are just now, January 6th happened, January 6th, 2021. It was last summer that the committee held hearings.
No. I want to jump in here and come back to the March on Washington. In your thoughts, will we ever see another March on Washington?
Well, we did have. I mean, they really did do this at the anniversary, 60th anniversary in DC at the Lincoln Memorial. They did do that then. I don't know how big the crowd was. I think that we can. I think that we can come together and come around certain things, but people are so set in their you know their fractions in society, and these media echo chambers are not helping. Um, really causing a lot of the divide. So do I think you can put the United States back together again? It's like Humpty Dumpty on a wall. All the king's horses, all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. All the right politicians can't put this back.
Gotcha.
Ryan?
But that's where so I feel like I want to push back a little bit, because government, yes, is slow, but now us building our own mechanisms, maybe through like the corporate side or economic side, to say what elements could we build that would actually counteract what we're against. Because if we just let it be, like you said, there's no way to catch up. It's going past us so fast, and we're going to be inundated with so much garbage that it's just going to be overwhelming. But then waiting for government, again, that's overwhelming in the process. So is there a way for us to build something that combats what we're up against ourselves and not wait for anybody else to save? Because I don't even believe in government saving us with regulation, because that can be co-opted, like you said, and steered and then just kind of watered down to the point that it has no real impact. But what could we build? Like, what would you want to see that could counteract what we're up against? Not talking about government fixing it, but just what could go up against what you're seeing right now with AI and all the inundated with bad data and bad facts.
Well, one of the things you mentioned corporations. Here's the challenge with corporations in the United States. Look what happened to Bud. Look what they did to Bud, because Bud had an ad with a transgender woman. Okay, so they're attacking corporations, they're attacking businesses. Individuals try to do these things. Look at the Black women in Atlanta who are trying to give startup money to Black female-owned businesses. Keisha Knight Pulliam from The Cosby Show is part of that collective doing that, and they're being sued. They're being sued for discrimination. And so it seems like every time that we try to build these things ourselves, there's someone there ready to kick it down. Now, yeah, we can do this, but one of the challenges is how you disseminate that information. Now, all the channels through which we would do it are owned by people who can shut down.
Shut it down. They can shut it down.
Who can block you so you can't put the message out there. I mean, honestly, if we're trying to do this and talk about misinformation, where's the first place you would go to get a lot of people to see it at once and get it reported and picked up by journalists? Whatever he's calling it today, X.
Yes, yeah.
You would go there, right? But if he doesn't like it and he's spying on everybody's, spying on everybody's tweets. If he doesn't like it, I promise you, he looks at the algorithms, he sees his name trending, he reads all the tweets where people mentioned his name. What do you do? Oh, you've been reported for community violation, blah, blah, blah. It's been deleted. So it doesn't even matter if we build these things ourselves, because they've put systems in places to dismantle these things. And so, I mean, what is the harm in Black women taking their money to help other Black women start up a business? And wait, you're suing me? You don't even care about the kinds of businesses we would be interested in. What interest do you have other than you want the money? No, you don't even want the money. You just don't want us to have it. And that is the fundamental problem, is that people, they don't care. They don't care if, for example, some people get hurt. They just don't want those people to have X, Y, and Z. That's the whole thing behind this government shutdown. Those politicians will be getting their paychecks. But the people that they're furloughing and telling, oh, you got to come to work, but you're not going to be paid. I just want those people to remember, didn't you all say that slavery has its benefits? I bet you do not see benefits now in the slavery that you're being forced to endure by working and not getting paid. So there's like it's the insanity of the United States right now. There's no other way to put it. Don't sugarcoat it. This country is totally insane. We have lost all control, all means of control over everything, over all of our institutions, over even just how people are able to work at the grassroots level. Because what happens when people work at the grassroots level? They get threatened. Their families get threatened. They get turned into pariah. Look at what happened to Ruby Freeman and Shane Moss. They were just doing their duty as election workers, poll workers who are average everyday people, and Donald Trump mentions their names and their lives are under threat. So at this point, even if we do these things ourselves, it only takes one person to not like it for us to not be able to do it anymore. I mean,
I want to I
it's
want
a
to
sad
jump in.
thing.
I want to jump in then. Some a lot of things going on in my alleged mind, but do you feel there was more hope for Black Americans during the March on Washington than there is today?
I think the spirit of hope was different because no one knew what was on the other side. And no one, when the future looks optimistic, when it looks like, wow, we're in uncharted territory. We don't know where we can go, but we don't see. I don't think that it's kind of like going through a tunnel. I don't think that I think they saw the light at the end of the tunnel, but didn't realize that after you get out the tunnel, what's outside there might not necessarily be such a good thing. Here we are right now where it's like, because of social media, because of our access to the internet and information, we know where this is going because all you have to do is go to the dark web and you will know what the future is going to bring.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not good.
Wow. When you think about the march and you think about today, how does that make you feel?
It just makes me feel an element of profound sadness because I look at all this, and my grandparents are still alive. I actually spent the day with my grandparents on Wednesday, and they grew up in they're both born in 1935, so they grew up in segregation, Maryland and South Carolina, right? That was it. My mother, first 10 years of her life, went to segregated schools in South Carolina. So I think about what the hope that they had for me and my sisters, because by the time my mother was born, it's like, okay, we're still in this. But I think the hope that they have for me and my sisters, I have cousins that are a generation after us, me and my sisters, the hope they had for them. And then we have the great grands who are here, right? My daughter and my nephew, and the hope that they have for them before we even existed. And having these conversations with them at a holiday. And it's like, wow, we're having the same conversation today that we thought we wouldn't be doing this, and still having to do it. Black people still have to have those talks with their kids about how to conduct yourself around white people so you come home. What is this? And I'm kind of like, I sit there with Fannie Lou Hamer said something at the 1968 Democratic Convention when they wouldn't sit the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. And she said, "Is this America?" And that question rings in my head every time I see what on paper we should be or we're supposed to be, and then the reality of what we are. And the thing that I think, you know what? I said it before, I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it. We deserved Donald Trump. That was what we deserved because we allowed it. And if he comes again and we don't do anything in our power to stop it, like Lindsey Graham said, we will have deserved that too.
Okay. Jen says, I just wanted to say such a great and thought-provoking conversation, Dr. Vibe. Well, it's all of us. You're included too. I need to watch this more often. Absolutely. You already subscribed. And then Lala says, that was a powerful statement. We can see our future so clearly. Let me ask, through your lens, and obviously you're not, what do you think Martin Luther King would say about America today?
Is this America?
Okay.
Valid.
Ryan, any comments?
No, I appreciate the conversation, and hopefully this becomes, commonplace, and we can have it more often. Or I have to pop into State of Things. I'll just poke my head.
This is the appetizer. We should have subtitled appetizer to Saturdays live at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Absolutely.
Aiden has a question for you, Aisha.
Yeah.
Aisha, do you think we really understand how intentional anti-Black racism is?
I think we do as Black people. The problem is that non-Black people do not. And we can't control it. Here's what I had this conversation. My mother and I were talking about this, I think, day before yesterday. And I had this conversation with many people over the years. Back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s, the question was, and there was actually, I can't remember what magazine, whether it was Life or Time or something. And the headline was, how do we solve our Negro problem? The fact that this country believes that Black people are a problem for it tells you everything that you need to know. And if you try to dismantle that belief, people lose their minds, because here's the thing, but it's a problem. If it's a problem, it's a problem of your own making, because no one told you to go take these people from their continent and bring them over here. But beyond that, Negro problem, guess what? We aren't the problem. We don't have the problem. The headline should have been, how do we solve our white problem? Because the problem is with the people who have the problem. And they have to do some self-reflection and ask themselves, why do we have a problem with this? It's like, you know what? I don't understand why people have a fit if we have affirmative action, or if LGBTQ people can get married. I don't understand that, because here's the thing. When equality for all looks like oppression to one, that's where we are right now, is that you have these people, specifically white men, who are talking about, reverse racism, or white men have it bad, blah, 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 blah. Well, no. The thing is that the sharing of rights, there's no finite number of rights. This is the part that kills me. There's no finite number of rights. There aren't, it's not like a pie where if, you don't get, if you don't keep eating, you'll miss your slice, or somebody can take your slice. The rights cover everyone. So no one's taking your rights because they have their own. And when you expand the rights for one, you expand the rights for all. And the fact that they can't see that is ridiculous. They just see this as, they're taking from me. They're taking from me. They're taking from me. Like, these migrants are taking our jobs. Who is picking the oranges in Florida right now when Ron DeSantis scared all those people away? The people who are sitting there complaining, they're taking our jobs. There's 100,000 farming jobs. Where are you, white men? You don't want those jobs. So let's be clear. They're not taking they're taking our spots because of affirmative action at the colleges. Last time I checked, when I was a professor at a college, no open slot had any one person's name or race identified for it. And even when you have, okay, we need, first of all, let's be clear, affirmative action are not quotas. It's not quotas. That was a Reagan era buzzword. These aren't quotas. These are opening the doors so that people who ordinarily wouldn't have a shot get a fair shot. And why, and we have to go back to why that's necessary, because all of these colleges were segregated to begin with. So that's all this is fixing the thing that was there. It's like, it just is maddening that we're at this point where people are complaining about, not that they're not having their rights, but seeing that other people are getting the same equal rights and protections that they have, and feeling as if it's being taken from them. The truth is, America would be a whole lot better place, and people would be a whole lot happier if people just minded their business. Because a lot of this is people sticking their noses in people's bedrooms, in people's bodies, and in people's lives when their lives are a shambles. Mind your business, take care of your own, let me do me.
I wonder what a conversation between you and Dr. King would be like. That would be fascinating. Like in my mind, going, like I would love to see what that would. You know what? And how creepy it is. I have a feeling one day AI may be able to do that.
Right. Jeez.
That's how I just saw.
Well, if AI is able to do that, the first person I want to have a conversation with is Prince.
Yes.
I've got some things to get off my chest.
Okay.
Namely, why he was holding back on some songs, bruh. I got some things to get off my chest.
Right. Yes.
You gave us freaking Daddy Pop when you had this other song here and these other things.
Yo, so
let's not go there.
Dr. My apologies, and Aisha, I do have to drum, but so good seeing you.
Thank you.
I'll be watching on Saturday. Thanks again.
All right, take care, Ryan. Have a great day. So, Aisha, what is, as we start winding it down here today, what is the legacy on the March on Washington, in your opinion?
That it was a great time, but that it was the hope that died.
Has it died and is it dead, or is it just died?
It died as in dead, because I think it's not that it's dead. I think it's in a constant state of dying, in every little ounce, every little piece, every day, something else in this. Because remember, the march was really about the democracy. It's about our democracy. And every day we watch another piece of it die, and just die, to the point where it's like we have to ask ourselves, why do we even have a constitution in the first place? At this point, It's not serving our purpose. There's nothing serving our purpose at this point. I think people just
or is it only serving a certain group of people's purpose? Because when that document was written, it was written by people who
slave owners.
Yeah, they didn't look like us, really, and they considered people that look like us property.
Yeah, 42. I think the 56 people that were at the Constitution Convention were slave owners. Many of the men who signed the document were. So it's always been designed to help a certain part of the population. But I think it goes back to what Martin Luther King was trying to get people to realize in a lot of his speeches, particularly poor white people, is that, yeah, that Constitution, it was written by slave owners. But guess what else they were? They were land-holding, wealthy white men. And you're busy fighting Black people who don't have any power here, while the people who do have all the power are screwing you. They're picking your pockets and diverting you to look the other way so they can pick your pockets. And one of the easiest way to look at this, the best example is, if Donald Trump is so freaking rich, how come he has Mary Pink Toes in a Mississippi trailer park that gets a government check for $163 a month, giving him $10? That is the point. That is the problem. And that's why I feel that we're never going to really be able to have that moment again.
Okay. Well, Aisha, I want to thank you not only today, but since what, 2015?
17, yeah.
17 for everything. And really great to have you on the Morning Vibe. Hope it can happen again when you have time, because we'd love to have you come on. For people who want to touch base, the best way is her Instagram account these days, because she's
or Discord, our Discord group for State of Things.
I'll promote that also. But yeah, and thank you for taking the time to share with us today. I guess we'll be chatting tomorrow night.
Yep.
Looking for any last messages you have for the morning show family?
Just keep walking the walk. The road's bumpy and it's about to get a whole lot worse. So put on your hiking boots.
All right. Thank you so much. Remember to give yourself grace and don't just manage your time, manage your energy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, family. Epic conversation there. And hey, touch base with us if you'd like to have Aisha back. I'd like to have her back, but what about you? What about you? So epic conversation. I see comment coming in here. Hayden says, a very sobering conversation, but it in a lot of people's minds, it's realistic. Lala says, oh, you're going to see the prices at the groceries. Who's picking the fruit in Florida? Nobody. It's on the ground rotting. Price rise is coming. All right. Got to look out for that. Got to look out. Lala is making a prediction. So we'll do a few last things before we call it a day here, or call it a morning here, by the way. So again, I put out earlier on to purchase tickets for the Earn While You Sleep event that's happening in Toronto, in the Greater Toronto area. There's the link, but I've also posted the link in the comment section on whatever platform you're watching. So great conversation they'll be holding tomorrow about real estate, investing, not only here in Canada, but internationally will be held. Maybe they should have invited Lala. There you go. All right. So let's do some other things to close it up here. So as always, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also, follow on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram to advertise your business, product, or service on the Dr. Vibe Show, on the many different conversations I host. I host the Morning Vibe with Ryan, Monday and Fridays, 9 a.m. Eastern time. I also do, I'll say, the State of Things, which I'll be showing in a moment, 9 p.m. on Saturday evenings Eastern time, and then Sunday afternoons, 5 p.m. Black Canada Talk. Excuse me. 5 p.m. Eastern time, Black Canada Talking. Also, join the Discord group. This conversation is just a thumbnail of what we chat. It's even more open on the Discord platform. So email me dr.vibe@the drvibeshow.com. Speaking about tomorrow night, State of Things, Aisha, Jill, and Lala. As I said, tune in, but make sure your ears are clean. If they're not, they may be cleaned. I'll just leave it at that. And then also, coming up this Sunday on Black Canada Talking, 5 p.m. Eastern time, Manifa Brooks is going to talk about data privacy. So if you are online in any sort of means, I highly recommend you check out that conversation. Hit subscribe on the YouTube page, and it's already up there. It's already up there. So, and at the bottom, we have how you can watch replays of this epic conversation. You can watch the Morning Vibe replays at the following places: the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and Facebook, the Afro-Caribbean Business Network on Facebook and YouTube, and Ryan O'Neill Knight on YouTube and LinkedIn. There we go. We are done for this week. So Monday, we don't have an official guest yet, but hey, Even if Brian and I are chatting, we always bring up conversation. So this is how we close it out. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, aim bigger, aim better, aim higher and wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember to give yourself grace, and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. We got one more comment, then we're going to exit. Fitness IQ says, amazing conversation. Fantastic. Fantastic. All right, everybody. So this is being broadcast. I hope you have a good weekend here in the Eastern Hemisphere. Yeah, I remember that. Eastern Hemisphere, Western. Man, I'm going back to my school days. Eastern and Western Hemisphere. All right. So God bless. Peace be all. Keep the faith and walk good.